Canadian response to the Syrian refugee crisis has been overwhelmingly positive, but many think there are not enough resources in the communities to support their resettlement. Is this true? I don't know. Let's find out from our dear friend, Mr. Aris Babikian. He has been helping a lot of refugees come and settle here in Canada. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Pleasure being with you.
Yes, thank you for coming back. So why don't you give our viewers a perspective on the concerns that people have regarding the refugees coming into the country and not enough resources that are available for their settlement?
Okay. First of all, as many of us know, the government commitment to bring 25,000 Syrian refugees was achieved, fulfilled by February 29. Mm-hmm. So during that short period between December 10 and February 29, 25,000 refugees was not easy to settle because they came very quickly, very fast. The agencies in Canada, they did not have enough resources. They were not expecting some of the social issues. For example, the composition of the family. Some families are with 6 children and 8 children. So there were certain things that didn't make us settle these refugees properly and in a dignified way. There were problems, there were shortcomings, but the refugees, the settlement groups, the sponsorship agreement holders, the sponsors, they did their best to settle these refugees in a very professional, very dignified manner. Mm-hmm. Most of the refugees, I would say now, it's been now 6 months, most of the refugees are in their way to be acquainted to the Canadian civil society. They are more now know the country. Some of them, their children started going to schools. And some of the breadwinners in the family, they found jobs, etc., etc. So, but then we still have problems. We still have difficulties. And recently, I was in Ottawa. I was invited to testify at the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Mm-hmm. Some of these shortfalls. I made a 5-page presentation to the House of Commons. Some of the difficulties, unfortunately, we started facing different difficulties right now. Some of these difficulties are due to the current government scaling down on its commitment to the Syrian refugees.
Because why are they doing that?
Why they are doing that? Because their commitment was for 25,000. They achieved their 25,000 by February. That's what they thought. And now they feel that there is no need to keep the same commitment. But as you know, last week it was the World Refugees Days, and the need to help the refugees these days is more than any time in mankind history. Mm-hmm. According to the United Nations statistics, 65 million around the world are refugees, which is unprecedented numbers in history of mankind. Mm-hmm. And between 8 and 10 million of these people are Syrian refugees alone. So the need is there.
But here's where the concern comes. Canadians are generous people. Mm-hmm. They want to help, and they have opened their hearts and their wallets and their homes, and you have seen that.
That's true.
Canada is a small country in terms of population, right? We don't have that many people to be able to then support that many more people that can come. I mean, if there was some way that it could be accommodated, I'm sure Canadians would say, just bring everybody here. Yeah. But we know that it's not possible. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When you go to Ottawa to testify in the House of Commons, is there a way that some of these people can also, rather than coming all the way to to Canada or to the United States or many other countries that they're being forced to go to because there is no safe place. Is there a talk anywhere of perhaps creating safe zones closer to where they are so that they can, they can be accommodated there as well? Because if there are those kinds of safe zones closer to home, because we know that many of them don't even want to stay. They want to, as soon as things are better, they want to go home. They want to be in their own countries as well, right? So, and it would not cost as much. Have you heard that kind of a conversation?
I was privy to some discussions in this regard.
Okay.
The safe zone issue, I agree with you, it is an ideal place to provide for these refugees and in much larger numbers. But in reality, the implementation of this safe zone is very, very complicated because it has to do with international politics. Regional powers, international powers are fighting with each other. Each one, they have their proxies in this civil war in Syria. And it's not for their benefit. If one power advocates safe zone, the opposite power will work to sabotage that proposal. And that's why the safe zone issue is not practical. And as we have seen in Europe, close to 1 million Syrian and other refugees fled to Europe. They are living in very desperate situation. They are in very difficult situation. I think the model of Canada is an ideal model. In Canada, we can do more. Yes, we
So how are we doing things differently than Europe that you think that it is possible in our country?
Okay, the way we did it, we provided an opening window, or we opened the doors to the Canadian individual, the Canadian civil society. Individual Canadians, they came, and as we have seen the last 6 months, the Canadians were very generous. They gathered together, they formed committees, they did fundraising to help bring sponsor refugees. And until now, I have Canadian families who are willing to come they asked me to help them, match them with the sponsors from overseas, from Syria, to sponsor them and bring them here. But the problem now we are facing, the government of Canada put a limitation on the sponsorship right now, because the government of Canada for a long time, they would issue an annual quota in its general departmental quotas target for refugees, they or total immigration, they will issue a quota for each organization to sponsor 100 here, 150 there, 200, etc. So for a year, the Canadian government waived that quota. So they told the civil society organization, churches, sponsorship agreement holders, you go ahead and sponsor as many you want. Now the government is scaling down again on that commitment. Now they are saying there will be quota again, and already the SARS that they received their quotas, they have a limited. They almost all of them, they submitted their sponsorship. Now they don't have any quotas to submit anymore, and the sponsors, Canadian sponsors here, are waiting for next year to open the window, the door for them to sponsor their families. So this private sponsorship, it is win-win for everyone. It is win for the Canadian government.
Because it's not costing the taxpayers any money.
That's right. It is me, you, and our neighbors who are we coming together. We putting our 2 cents together. We raising the funds, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, 5, 6, 7 families, 8 families, and bringing these families here. And this is an ideal model which doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So we need to encourage this approach.
All right. So why don't you look into the camera and tell the Prime Minister what we need to do to help these people? Because while all the government officials and politicians and all over the world are fighting over what should happen, what should not happen, there are people who are hurting, real people who are hurting. So what solution would you like our government to implement or to adopt so that we have a win-win situation? Go ahead and tell him.
I would like to appeal to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Citizenship, Refugees and Immigration to bring a program for a year or two, standalone program to sponsor Syrian refugee. This program should be outside of the general departmental annual immigration numbers, so that Canadian citizens, refugees, families who are separated from each other, they can reunify these families, and Canadians in general who are willing to sponsor Syrian refugee families to have the opportunity to sponsor them, because right now we are facing a very heart-wrenching situation. The quotas are filled for various different churches, organizations, sponsorship groups, and they don't have a quota. They have to wait until 2017, 2018. It is too long to wait a year or two. People are dying on the ground. People are suffering. And as compassionate people and humanitarian people, as we have showed in the past when we brought 25,000 Syrian refugees, that the Canadian people are generous people and they are willing to stand by their commitment. So they need the government to help, to work with them, to help them bring these refugees and allow them this opportunity and lift this quota for 1 or 2 years, so that we can sponsor refugees with the Canadian civil society members organization to bring them here.
So there you go. There are people who are willing to sacrificially donate money, clothes, things to help fellow human beings. I mean, they are total strangers that they're helping, but that's who we are as Canadians. We like to help. So we would like to join in this appeal to our government to do something to help alleviate this humanitarian crisis. Thank you so much for being here, Aris.
It's a pleasure. It is always nice to be with you, and I think we are jointly working towards improving the humanitarian crisis in Syria.
We must.
Yeah, definitely.
There is so much more for you, so don't go anywhere.